We've all been there, right? That dream, that moment where you just lift off the ground and suddenly you're soaring.
Mm-hmm. The dream of flying. It's universal.
It really is. It feels like, ultimate freedom. But what happens when you take that feeling and run it through a really ancient, really strict system of interpretation?
Well, that's exactly what we're doing today. We're doing a deep dive into the classical Arabic tradition, specifically on the symbol of al-Tayran, or flying.
And we should be very clear here. We are sticking strictly to the wisdom that's been passed down and attributed to the tradition of Ibn Sirin.
Exactly. This isn't modern psychology. We're not talking about anxiety or wish fulfillment in the way we think of it now.
Right. This is a system where every single detail, how high you fly, which way you go, even if you have feathers, is treated like a crucial piece of data.
It's a methodology. And our goal here is to give you, the learner, a kind of shortcut to understanding the rules of this specific framework.
Because in this tradition, a tiny difference in the dream can completely flip the meaning, can it?
Completely. You can be looking at a sign of incredible honor and status, or you could be getting a pretty severe warning about death.
Our mission today is to unpack all of that, to see how these dream actions were thought to translate into fate or authority or real peril.
Okay, let's unpack this.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. The default setting. If you dream you're flying, what's the foundational meaning in this system?
The baseline is generally pretty positive. Flying is seen as a strong indicator of two main things: travel, al-safar, and maybe more importantly, high status or honor.
Ulu al-Qadar.
Exactly. It's almost always a movement upward in the world.
And what I find so fascinating about this is that it's not just a vague positive feeling.
Yeah.
The system treats status as a quantifiable metric, right? It's vertical.
That's the core difference. It is absolutely quantifiable. The sources are so rigid on this. Your elevation in status is measured literally by how high you fly off the ground.
So it's a direct correlation.
A direct one-to-one correlation. Think of like a scale. The higher your altitude in the dream, the greater the honor or the political power you're set to achieve in your waking life.
So hovering just a few feet up might be a small win, but soaring above the clouds, that's a whole different story.
A profound social shift, yeah.
Uh,
But that also brings in the danger, which we'll get to. The higher you go, the farther you have to fall.
of course. But first, let's talk about ambition. The idea of not just having status, but actually gaining authority, gaining al-Sultan.
Right. So just flying on its own indicates potential. But if you fly and you actually reach your intended destination in the dream,
Yeah.
that's conquest.
And how does the dream signal that you've, secured the prize?
It's all about the landing. But if you land on something specific, a building, a plot of land, whatever it is, the interpretation is that you will literally own or control that very thing.
Wow. So the dream becomes a literal map of your future assets.
It sets the boundaries of your new authority.
Yeah.
But what if you don't land? What if you're just flying?
They're suspended.
Exactly. Flying endlessly between the heaven and the earth. That has its own very specific meaning.
Which is?
It's a sign that the dreamer has a multitude of desires and wishes. Kathrat al-amani wal-mana.
So it's that feeling of restless ambition, always reaching but never quite landing on one single goal.
Precisely. It's uncommitted, but very potent ambition.
Okay, and I think this is where it gets really interesting, because we move from these general ideas into the real fine print, where you go and how you get there.
Yes, those contextual details change everything for the interpreter.
Let's talk about a big one. Power. What if you dream you're flying over a mountain? Fakh-Jabal. That sounds huge.
It is one of the most powerful signs in the whole system. A mountain is a symbol of permanent authority, of stability. To fly over it means you transcend even that.
So it's interpreted as what exactly?
Attaining a governorship or high leadership, a wilaya, a riyasa.
And the sources have a pretty staggering way of describing just how much power that is.
They do. The interpretation specifically says this is a position of such immense authority that even kings must submit to it.
Wow. So you're basically an untouchable regional power.
Essentially, yes. Now, from that kind of high-level politics, we can zoom right in on the mechanics of the flight itself, how you're flying.
Right. Like, does it matter if you have wings?
It matters critically.
Yeah.
Because it signals the nature of your success. If you're flying with a wing or with feathers, you have some kind of aid.
Okay.
So that's interpreted as achieving a benefit. Almanfaya. You gain something, maybe through some help or a tool you had.
It's a supported gain. But what if you fly without any feathers, without wings, just pure will?
That's a much more profound, sort of existential shift. Flying without feathers points to a major change in your condition or status.
Takayur halimin halialahal.
Right. It's moving from one state of being to a completely different one. It implies you did it on your own inherent power.
The ultimate self-made dreamer.
And the sources really emphasize this. Flying from a low place to a high one without wings means you will achieve your ambition, and your status rises with your altitude. Pure effort, pure result.
And this kind of unaided flight is tied to some really specific high-impact outcomes, isn't it?
Yes, two in particular. One spiritual, one very, very personal.
The spiritual one being.
Flying to the highest reaches of the sky, to Ananal Sama.
Hmm.
That specific vertical climb is seen as a sign of performing the Hajj pilgrimage.
The ultimate spiritual ascent is mirrored by the ultimate physical ascent in the dream.
Exactly. And then there's the personal one, which is more of a warning.
Flying from roof to roof.
Yes, Minsathi Lasaf.
Yeah.
This is an incredibly direct sign of domestic disruption.
How direct.
Very. It specifically points to a major change in marital life. It mentions the possibility of divorce and marrying someone else, or replacing a servant or concubine.
So you're literally swapping one domestic situation for another.
You are actively replacing that structure.
Okay, we've covered a lot of the ascent, the ambition, but you mentioned earlier that the higher you fly, the greater the risk. There has to be a shadow side to this.
There absolutely is. And within this classical system, almost all the negative interpretations involve one thing: the failure to return.
The failure to land safely.
That is the key indicator of peril. Yeah. And the absolute worst-case scenario is just vanishing.
So if you fly up into the sky and just disappear, to return.
Wagahu lamyajis, that is interpreted as a direct sign of the proximity of your death. Your life journey has visually ended. You've left the known world.
That's chilling. So that inability to ground yourself again is the ultimate negative sign.
It is. And sometimes the destination itself is the warning, even if the flight feels successful.
What do you mean?
Well, say you fly from your own house, a place you know, to a house you don't recognize, at Dharmashula.
An unknown house.
This isn't interpreted as travel or honor. This is seen as your transition from the world of the living to the grave.
So the unfamiliar house is the grave.
It's your final resting place, the ultimate unknown destination.
And the system is nuanced, right? It even takes into account the dreamer's own state before they even have the dream.
Yes, their physical or even moral state. For some people, flying is always a warning, not an aspiration.
Like who?
For a sick person, the dream can indicate a severe illness that brings them right to the edge of death. And for someone who's considered morally unfit for authority,
their dream of flying isn't a good sign.
No, it's a sign of a deep fault in their religious practice, kafadini. Their ambition is hollow. It's not supported by virtue.
But there is one last scenario, isn't there? One that kind of brings it all together. It promises recovery, but only after the peril.
That's the classic crisis and recovery dream. And it's the perfect synthesis of the whole system.
This is the one where you fall.
Right. You fly high into the sky, and then you fall back to Earth. The key is you land safely.
And that means?
It means you will go through a severe illness that puts you close to death. You touch that threshold of the unknown. But the return, the safe landing, is your salvation. God grants you recovery.
So the terrifying descent is the illness, but the landing is what matters. It cancels out the peril.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? When you boil it all down, this whole ancient roadmap for interpreting a flying dream, what's the one central principle we can pull from these sources?
I think the core takeaway is that flying is the ultimate symbol of ambition and ascent. No question. It reflects that deep human drive for status, for control. But the final judgment, the real meaning of the dream, rests entirely on completing the circle, on the landing or the return.
So success isn't the spectacular takeoff?
No. It's the safety and dignity of coming back to Earth. If you get all the power of the world but you disappear into the sky, the dream still means death. The focus is relentlessly on that safe, known return to the ground.
And that's really the powerful message here, isn't it? That even in our highest dreams of freedom and power, the laws of gravity, the laws of consequence of reality, they always apply in the end.
It really makes you think. In our own lives, when we're chasing some ambition, how often do we only focus on the thrill of the ascent? And how often do we completely forget to plan for the descent, for the reality of the landing? Something to consider the next time you feel like you're really soaring.